The situation between the United States and Iran remains deeply unpredictable. Statements coming out of the White House and the Middle East can shift the entire picture in an instant. Most recently, President Donald Trump made a surprise move by postponing planned strikes on Iran's energy infrastructure for 5 days. That decision immediately raised a pressing question. Is this a genuine signal of de-escalation, or simply a tactical pause before the next move? What makes the moment even more striking is the context in which the delay was announced. Washington claims recent exchanges with Tehran have been productive, yet events on the ground suggest that tensions have not eased at all. This growing gap between diplomatic messaging and battlefield reality once again highlights a familiar paradox. Dialogue does not necessarily mean calm. Many observers believe the delay was not driven by goodwill alone. Instead, it appears to be a strategic buffer, a calculated pause that allows Washington to reassess the risks at a time when Iran is sending increasingly hardline signals, especially regarding its ability to influence the Strait of Hormuz. In such a tense environment, even a limited military move could trigger consequences far beyond anyone's initial expectations. At the same time, the positive reaction from global financial markets suggests that economics is playing a major role in political decision-making. Yet Iran's complete denial that any meaningful talks are taking place makes the picture even murkier. It underscores the information war unfolding alongside the geopolitical one, with each side pushing its own narrative to serve its strategic interests. Seen from that perspective, Trump's decision may not represent an ending at all, only a temporary pause before the next, and potentially more dangerous phase. To understand the delay properly, it has to be placed within a much broader picture, one in which the line between diplomacy and military calculation is becoming increasingly blurred. Washington insists that communication with Tehran has been effective. Iran, however, flatly denies the existence of any real dialogue channel. This contradiction is more than a simple disagreement over facts. It is a clear example of information warfare, where each side works to shape the narrative in its own favor. Against that backdrop, the 5-day pause announced by the United States is difficult to interpret as a true peace gesture. Analysts increasingly see it as a strategic cooling-off window, not to ease tensions, but to recalculate risk before the next move. In other words, it is a pause with purpose, not a concession. If the real objective were genuine de-escalation, the signals coming from both sides would likely be more aligned rather than openly contradictory. Behind the decision lies a series of very tangible pressures. The first is the immediate response from financial markets. Stocks climbed and oil prices cooled almost as soon as the postponement was announced. That reaction alone shows how any military action in the Middle East can trigger a chain reaction across the global economy, forcing Washington to weigh not just military outcomes, but economic stability as well. Then there is the threat of Iranian retaliation, particularly through the Strait of Hormuz, a variable that cannot be underestimated. Even a temporary disruption to that maritime corridor could send shockwaves through global energy markets. Add to that the pressure from European allies, who have consistently favored diplomacy over military escalation, and the picture becomes even clearer. By openly welcoming Trump's decision, European leaders signaled that they have no desire to be dragged into another large-scale Middle Eastern war. In that sense, Trump's move can be understood as a strategic repositioning. The United States is not abandoning its pressure campaign against Iran, but it may be adjusting the timing and method in order to avoid a direct confrontation too early. Yet even as Washington recalibrates, developments in the Middle East suggest that the danger of escalation has not diminished. If anything, it has become more complicated. Tensions between the United States and Iran were already severe, and now they are being pushed to a new level as Israel continues to carry out strikes on targets inside Iran. Operations may serve Israel's own security goals, but they also risk undermining any effort to reduce tensions and could pull the United States deeper into the spiral of confrontation. This creates a form of asymmetric conflict in which the line between war and peace becomes increasingly difficult to define. At the same time, this standoff no longer appears confined to a simple bilateral rivalry. The involvement of proxy forces, most notably the Houthis in Yemen, has expanded the conflict across the wider region, backed by Iran. These groups have the ability to target shipping lanes, infrastructure, and Western interests without any formal declaration of war. That chain reaction effect is precisely what makes the current situation so dangerous. The Middle East now faces the possibility of multi-layered escalation, where direct state-to-state confrontation and proxy warfare unfold simultaneously. Once these flashpoints begin to connect, even a single incident could trigger a domino effect, dragging the entire region into a fresh cycle of instability. From this perspective, it becomes clear that the current confrontation is no longer just about the United States and Iran. It has evolved into a complex web of overlapping interests, competing agendas, and multiple actors operating at once. Trump's decision to delay strikes may have attracted enormous attention, but in reality, it is only one piece of a much larger puzzle. It does not clearly signal de-escalation. Instead, it points to a strategic adjustment taking place while the regional landscape continues to shift in an increasingly uncontrollable direction. Current developments also show that the true center of gravity in this confrontation may no longer lie in fiery speeches or direct military action alone. It is increasingly moving into a quieter, but far more dangerous realm: strategic geography. When the major players are not yet ready for all-out war, natural choke points become highly effective instruments of pressure, sometimes even decisive ones. In a moment when Washington is weighing options for increasing pressure, Tehran may not need direct confrontation to create a major impact. Interfering with energy flows alone could do enormous damage. In that wider picture, the Strait of Hormuz stands out as the world's oil valve. Roughly 20% of global oil supply passes through this narrow waterway. That means any disruption there could instantly throw energy markets into turmoil. Iran fully understands the strategic value of Hormuz. The ability to control it, or simply threaten to disrupt it, is not just a military tool, but a powerful economic lever. And Hormuz is not the only vulnerable point. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which links the Red Sea to the Indian Ocean,